Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP. Nick is here in attendance with me as, I guess, always. Now that I'm back, but we're back to normal. We're back to normality here on The Push. So today we're going to be going through NXT from this week. This was last night's episode of NXT. We had a lot going down, especially when it comes to Evolution. A little bit more about that as we go along with the podcast. But let's dive into all the action that took place and let's discuss everything that went down. So we will kick things off with one of the Evolution entailed matches. And this would be the start of the number one contenders NXT Women's Championship Tournament. There'll be 4 women's singles matches throughout the course of this episode of NXT. And the winners of those 4 matches will go into a fatal 4-way next week to see who will go up against JC Jane at Evolution, the all-women's WWE pay-per-view, PLE. So we would start off with Jada Parker, one-on-one with Tia Hale, in a match that seemed to be pretty back and forth for the most part. It was quite fun, to be honest, watching the two go at it, and they were pretty competitive with one another. Got to a point where Tia Hale locked in the Kimura lock, and she was locking it in consistently, like over and over and over again. Jada would go into the corner and get her out of it, and then she just latched herself back on, and that would happen a number of times. Got to a point where they go into the sort of like the middle of the ring, and Jada Parker would very slyly tap on Tia Hale's leg, the blind side of the referee. So the referee couldn't see the tap. It was on the other side. Tia obviously felt it, so let go of the Kimura lock. She's convinced that she's won. The referee's like, "What are you doing? You haven't won. What are you on about?" And then Jada Parker hits the hypnotic, and it is 1, 2, 3. We got our first competitor in that fatal 4-way I mentioned a moment ago. So yeah, quite the interesting finish, this one. A false finish, with the tap that wasn't noticed. So yeah, definitely a little bit controversial from Jada Parker on the way that she won this matchup. But ultimately, I think when it comes down to the winner, I think that was the right call. Nice to see Jada Parker get another big opportunity here, and possibly even book a spot if she wins that fatal 4-way at Evolution. So yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. But a good opening contest here to start NXT. We would then keep things rolling with the same type of situation. This time we would have the two women being Lash Legend and Kalani Jordan. And I think, Kalani Jordan being a former women's NXT North American champion, you'd probably expect her to, probably do, probably be the winner here in this particular contest because of her pedigree and, her history and being one of the top women when it comes to winning championships and, just being a stalwart on the show in singles competition. Last Legend, she hasn't had much of a singles competition recently. But obviously since what's happened and, she's now going alone, no longer part of Metaphor, that's obviously been and done. She's got an opportunity now to go into things for herself. And that's exactly what she did here in this matchup. She would withstand a lot of punishment for Kalani Jordan. But in the end, her power would come into play and she would slam down Kalani Jordan, get in the 1, 2, 3 and book in her spot in that fatal 4-way next week. So yeah, maybe a little bit of a surprise on this one, depending on the way you look at it. But ultimately, Last Legend's first big win as a single superstar. And that's a huge win for her over someone like Kalani Jordan, who is obviously got a bit of a pedigree to herself. We then see Tony D'Angelo come on down to the ring. He would basically start by looking back on everything that's taken place over the last couple of months, obviously with Stax and Luca Cruzifino and the family in general. And Tony would call out Luca Cruzifino pretty much straight away, who would then join him in the ring. Tony would question Luca and Stax in the desert, before then questioning Luca's actions at Battleground, so a lot of questioning going on here from the Don. Tony would demand Luca would look him in his eyes, tell him he's not with Stax, he's got nothing to do with him. But before Luca can actually answer, Stax interrupts. He would reference the lack of trust and would plead to Luca about him never disobeying him, and then would bring up the desert and say that he was never good enough to actually be Tony's consigliere. A brawl would break out between everybody. There would be some heavy guys that Stax is sort of entrusted to sort of like do his dirty work for him. But they would get taken out pretty quickly. It get to a point where Luca Cruzifino would go to hit Channing Stax Lorenzo, but would actually take out Tony D'Angelo, causing more distrust between the Don and the consigliere. So quite a crazy, chaotic segment, this one. But a lot of intricate stuff going on within the family that's not looking too good for the relationship between the Don and the consigliere. We would then have a 3 versus 3 tag team matchup. This would be Yoshiki Inamura and Josh Briggs teaming with Elijah. They would take on Trick Williams, AJ Francis, and Wesley. It's meant to be AJ Francis' tag team partner from TNA in this one, but unfortunately he was injured and not able to compete, so they would have to find a replacement, and they would find Wesley from High Rise. Yeah, a little bit of a backstage, chat between Trick Williams and Wesley, referencing the history they've had together. But when it came to this particular matchup, they were more than happy to work with one another, and they were on the same page. But they couldn't get the victory in this contest because it would be Yoshiki Inamura, Josh Briggs, and Elijah who would pick up the win. And very interestingly, Yoshiki Inamura pinning Trick Williams in order to win this matchup. TNA champion being pinned by Yoshiki Inamura is quite obviously the statement made from Yoshiki. So yeah, it's quite a fun match. This one I quite enjoyed it. And there was a lot going down, especially towards the end with that Yoshiki win. The splash from the top. Well, I love the way he does the splash. To be fair, I think I've said in the past I'm quite fond of his general style of wrestling, and he's always fun to watch within the ropes. But yeah, very fun tag team matchup, 3 versus 3, and yeah, nice little sort of halfway point here on NXT. Nick, what do you think though? Start of NXT here. You got a couple of women's Evolution qualifying matches that were taking place. You got the distrust in the D'Angelo family, and then obviously you've got the 3 versus 3. Trick Williams taking the pinfall. I think maybe the first one he's taken since winning the TNA Championship.
Yeah, pretty fast-paced start. Barely got the introduction to the history of what's been going on with JC, and then kick things off with the Jada Parker Thea Hale match. Interesting dynamic, and one we kind of see repeated for each of the 4 matches. We see the bigger person in the match, and then the smaller one. The smaller one, tries to build up enough momentum to take down the bigger opponent. So a common theme throughout the night. Interesting dynamic as well is Thea Hale attacking Jada before the match, maybe just acknowledging the fact that Jada, is a little better, at least at the moment, than Thea. Yeah, because Miss Parker obviously controlled most of the match, and then Thea, getting Jada to tap, or seemingly seem to tap, was an interesting decision. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, and or where they're going to go with that. But with Jada hitting the hypnotic and winning, I think that's the right call. So I think that's the right call. So I'm glad they went with it. I'm just not sure where they're going to take that particular angle. The Kalani Jordan Last Legend, kind of similar, like I mentioned, the common theme we saw with the last Evolution Eliminator. Kalani trying to build up momentum over Lash, who's obviously much stronger. And then Kalani started off the match really well, and then Legend got her bit in, and then Kalani felt like she was going to take it back to get the win. But Kalani, no matter what Kalani did, just didn't seem like she had enough to take down Lash. So as you kind of mentioned, Kalani has been all around title picture for quite some time. So a testament to Lash getting the win here, and all the offense she took from Kalani, possibly big things in Lash's future. And I'm not sure if we're done with this rivalry yet either, because the commentary team did mention the little sister mentality once again for Kalani. So interesting dynamic with Kalani. It seems like she's kind of a tweener. Like she was very green as a face, and now as a heel, she's still kind of getting treated like a face. So interesting to see where they take that. The Dawn of NXT and Luca Crucifino bit. I think this dynamic is interesting too, because they're kind of making the Don seem like now he's just extremely paranoid. And so now they're almost making it seem like everyone else is the normal one, and the Don just, has some internal issues and power struggles. So an interesting dynamic there. And obviously Stacks coming in and Crucifino trying to hit him and hitting the Don. More of the same. Communication clearly not there. I have no idea where we're going to end up going here. But yeah, I'm excited to see the fall. However, it feels like maybe the scenario that makes the most sense. It's that they all 3 go their separate ways. I don't know. Or Stacks having his own family just doesn't set well with me. But we'll see where they go. And then the big 6-man tag match. The commentators kind of took my attention a lot with this one, because first of all, they referenced the Enzo and Big Cass catchphrase. Booker T did, and then they reference Elias's history in WWE and AJ Francis, formerly known as Top Dollar, inability to execute the suicide dive. And AJ Francis also played on that as he acted like he was going to, and it didn't. Really playing with the NXT universe for that one. But yeah, Booker was on one tonight. I think he's always on one, but especially tonight, he was living it up. So it was pretty fun, pretty chaotic match. Everyone kind of got their moment, and then yeah, I think we kind of share the same feelings towards Inamura. His I don't recall the exact name, but his splash essentially off the top rope is crazy how well he's able to do that, considering he's a bigger talent, of course. But him getting the win over Trick Williams, that's a statement. And then obviously, of course, later on in the night, giving that opportunity to Briggs makes me think that eventually when Inamura does get that shot, he will take advantage of it. So yeah, the ceiling continues to be raised for Inamura. Excited to see what he can do on NXT.
Yeah, he's always a captivating watch. I think whenever he's in the ring, I can't help but to sort of like take notice and just enjoy what he's offering. So yeah, I don't know, he's just one of those characters that I just can't seem to take my eyes off for some reason. But yeah, I guess that's a good thing, and nice to see him back in, and we can confirm that he's around, a lot more often now, which is obviously great to see. So let's move on then. Second half of NXT still to go. We would then see more women's qualifiers. Obviously, we've already had 2 throughout the night. So we've got 2 more still to come. This one would then see Zarya going 1-on-1 with Izzy Dame, with opportunities to obviously advance in the number 1 contenders tournament. And this would see Izzy Dame eventually get the victory over Zarya because of a little bit of interference on the outside. So the culling was there, but the culling didn't really have anything to do with the finish in this matchup. So it would basically be down to a little bit of confusion between Tatum Paxley and Soruka. So the match was going on as normal. Zarya was starting to get into a bit of control. And then suddenly, Tatum Paxley shows up, and there's a big scream from Soruka on the outside. Zarya, obviously, looking a little bit concerned for a tag team partner, and well, her friend. She was sort of like devote her attention over to the situation, and that would provide Izzy Dane with the opportunity to hit a big spine buster, high rise, if you will, and then to get the 1-2-3 and secure her spot in that women's fatal 4-way matchup. There's been a little bit of sort of interaction between Tatum Paxley, Zarya, and Soruka before in recent weeks. And then also as well on the back of that with Izzy Dame as well. So this all seemed like it basically came to a head and sort of like made the next chapter in this whole story all in one little bit between all 4 women. So it's quite interesting the way that they played it out there. But yeah, as to where the sort of leads the situation, was it intentional from Tatum? She didn't seem to be intentional. She was very upset on the outside. She was very apologetic. But she's going through a lot of stuff at the moment in terms of her mental stuff. She's clearly not in the right place. Izzy Dame clearly wants to, maybe give her an olive branch, perhaps, maybe, into the culling, possibly. But yeah, it's one of the situations. So quite interesting for sure. But Izzy Dame booking her spot, maybe that's a surprise. But I guess based on how things go, yeah, there's obviously that confusion between Tatum, Sol, and Zarya. We would then see our 4th of 4 number 1 contenders eliminators. And then we would have, in this one, we would have Lola Vice go 1-on-1 with Jordan Grace. This one was quite a fun match. I think out of the 4 matches, I think this is probably my favorite of each of them. This one was pretty heavy hitting. It was back and forth. I thought both women, showed themselves up and had a really good showing in this one. It would be Jordan Grace in the end just getting the victory. But not after Lola Vice hit a really big, spinning kick to the side of the head of Jordan. There was a close near fall, and then I think a few short moments later, Jordan would power back through, hit the finishing move, and then that would be the 1-2-3 for Jordan. Rounding off a pretty nice looking fatal 4-way for next week. So yeah, like I said, this one was a really fun match. I think Jordan Grace probably is the right winner in this one. As to who is going to face JC Jane, we can obviously talk about that another time. But the 4 matches were great. Lots and lots of women's segments in this episode of NXT. And they are the best NXT. Well, they are the best women's division for a reason, they say. So Yeah, they were showing out very strongly here, the ladies, and we don't even have everything to say about the women's division because we've still got one more segment to go through, and that is Blake Monroe. She would sign her contract for NXT in the main event, the ending segment of NXT, whichever you want to call it. And she would go on to basically just highlight how good the women's division is on NXT. She make it clear that that she's now here and she's going to be claiming all of it for herself. She's interrupted by Fatal Influence, that obviously includes the NXT Women's Champion Jacy Jayne, Fallon Henley, and Jasmine Nix. And they would basically complain about. It's basically they say that they don't get the respect that they deserve. Whilst Blake, she's got all the eyes on her at the moment. You know, she's the glamour, and she's got the spotlight truly shining upon herself. Blake would basically call in Fatal Influence insecure bitches. Before then getting attacked by a fatal influence and getting put through the table that she signed the contract on. So yeah, this is quite the fun segment to end it here. Seems to be like they're sort of portraying a match down the line between Jacy and Blake Monroe. As to what that means for Evolution, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe there's a way that Monroe gets in that match. I don't know. Because obviously we just had those fatal four-way qualifying matches across this very show. So yeah, as to how that's going to go, we'll see what happens. But Blake Monroe officially an NXT Women's Superstar, and yeah, going to bring some glamour to the division as well. Nick, what did you think? The last two women's matches here, Izzy and Jordan Grace both qualifying, and the arrival of Blake Monroe getting slammed through the table by Fatal Influence. They run the division.
Kind of similar to the last two matches with Zarya and Izzy Dane. Zarya obviously controlling most of the match, and shockingly, the calling not being the result of the finish, but instead being Tatum Paxley, and allowing Izzy to get that win. She has been picking up some momentum. I think clearly she's playing a big part in the calling, and clearly trending in the right direction. I think that's safe to say. As for the Tatum Paxley angle with them, maybe she's the thorn that ends up causing issues with Soul and Zarya. Commentators were really hitting hard on that, kind of questioning how authentic Zarya and Soul were, but that they made TikTok videos together. So that how more, you can't get much more real than that, I guess. But yeah, Izzy being the ultimate opportunist, taking that advantage of Zarya having her attention taken away from the match for just a split second. But yeah, I'm okay with Izzy. I think allowing someone else to go to the top, I'm all for that. And she certainly seems to be going that direction. The Lola Vice Jordan Grace match, yeah, I would probably say that's probably the best one of the night. I think the only other one that came close to me would be Kalani and Lash. But each match you walk away taking something from it. And one of the things I love about NXT is they don't really have matches that are pointless. For the most part, everything means something, or something results from it. And this match was no exception. Shockingly enough, this match kind of had the opposite effect of the other three, in that Lola, the smaller competitor, really controlled most of the match, especially for being in the ring with Jordan Grace. I found that particularly surprising. And as soon as Jordan Grace would start picking up momentum, Lola would counter it. And so Jordan does end up being the win here, but I would say Lola comes out of this match looking like the better competitor. So for whatever that's worth, I think if it wasn't obvious before, Lola was kind of floating in the mid card there for a bit. I think Lola is certainly getting a push as well, to kind of get the better of someone like Jordan Grace in a match like this. Being this important, I think clearly that's a statement, and main roster could take notes from this. Just because you eat a pin doesn't mean you're not trending in the right direction. I think that's clearly the case here for Lola. Commentary team did make an interesting statement about Jordan Grace not being as successful as maybe people would have thought. I'm curious to see where they're going to take that, or if that's just commentary talking out their ass per usual, as they tend to do on NXT more than any other show, I think. But I think personally, they could take that angle if Jordan ends up losing next week, which it's a good possibility. There's three other women in the match. I think they could take that, and they could give that kind of fuel to Jordan to turn Grace. I've said it since day one. She'd make a better heel. And yeah, I think that's where she needs to be. But yeah, the Fatal 4-Way next week with Izzy, Lash Legend, Miss Parker, and Jordan Grace. That should be a hell of a match. Looking forward to that one. To see who gets to take on JC Jane. And speaking of JC Jane, making her presence felt with the Blake Monroe contract signing, going turning chaotic. Who would have thought? But yeah, you raised a good point. Where do they take this? And, Evolution is July 13th, I think. So that's a good month out, and then we're building up a competitor for her. So is this something that we do in the meantime? It kind of makes the other 4 women that won tonight seem a little less significant. I think that's safe to say. But yeah, interesting angle there. Don't know where they're going to take it. Maybe Blake has to work through the rest of Fatal Influence first. I guess that's certainly a possibility. But JC clearly having her hands full, I think, is the main takeaway, I suppose. But yeah, I'm curious. I'm looking forward to seeing Blake in the ring. Obviously, I think she has the look and the it factor in any other category, but I haven't quite yet seen her in the ring as I don't watch much outside of WWE. But yeah, like you said, lots of I think only one men's match and one men's segment kind of in the ring. The rest of it being women. So yeah, definitely shining a spotlight on the best women's division in wrestling, as they so often say. Yeah, I thought the matches were pretty good. I think we walk away with stories from every single bit here. So hard to call it a failure in the slightest. So for me, I give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, it was a pretty good match, or a pretty good night, and another great episode of NXT.
Yeah, I'd weigh in also with a 7.5 out of 10. I think the women's division, the attention they're getting at the moment, rightly, deservedly so as well. Just obviously building into Evolution, they sort of need to, make it very prominent here. And NXT have done a great job of that so far. So the main roster obviously could, take a few lessons here from the way they do handle the women's division. But not to say they're doing a bad job up there, but it's just like, I think, when you're building towards a big PLE like that, where it's all women's pay-per-view, I think this is the idea, to basically just get as many out, showcase as much talent as you can, and then obviously build opportunities for people who when you've got that option to do so. But yeah, NXT was a really good show. This obviously mixed in with the D'Angelo Chaos and Trick Williams taking his first loss via pinfall since winning the TNA Championship. That's obviously very interesting. So yeah, there are a few things here to take away and to build into the following weeks. So yeah, good show, and nothing felt like it was for nothing in this one, which is ultimately what you want in a weekly show. But for now, guys, that is basically us done here regarding this episode of NXT Recap. If you guys like what we're putting out here, then please let us know in the comments what you're thinking, whether it's good, bad, whatever. Disagree, agree with anything that we've said, let us know in the comments. Please hit like on the video and subscribe to our channel to keep up with future content coming forward and upcoming. Next one will be a Friday Night SmackDown recap coming up at the end of the week. But for now, guys, this has been The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you all in the next one. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye.